Thank you so much. My name is Laura and I am an alcoholic. And truly by the grace of God, I've been sober since April the 6th of 1987. And I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you, Summer, for the invitation. It is one of my favorite topics for sure. And so I'm excited to be doing that. I am very grateful to be sober today and to be able to participate in a meeting, and hello to all of my friends that I see on the screen. Some of you I haven't seen in a while. And so I am going to just cover step 10. I'm going to end up sharing some of my experience, strength, and hope as we go through the step, because you don't need anybody to teach you. That's not what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't teach, we share. And but the text is so good and so clear cut that I'd really be remiss if I wasn't referencing that. So I will start on page 84. Let me just ask, can everybody hear me okay? I'm kind of in an odd building, all kinds of, okay, good, perfect. I'm going to start in the middle of step 8 of page 84. And what it says is, this thought brings us to step 10. And what I was taught is when they reference something like that, this thought, it's like, what thought was that? What thought brings me to step 10, right? And the thought is that those 12 promises that are listed in the 9th step will always materialize. And then the condition is if we work for them, right? And that thought of if we work for them, what does that mean? Well, that brings us to step 10. Right, which suggests that we continue to take personal inventory and to continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along, right? And that implies that I'm not well yet. It implies that I'm still suffering from my humanness, and some days really suffering from untreated alcoholism, but that every day I'm going to need to continue for this 24-hour period of time to tap into that power that keeps me sober. And that it places me in a position of staying teachable, right? The principle behind step 10 is perseverance. Thank God. You know what I mean? Thank goodness this is not a program where we get done. You know, we get through step 9 and they're like, all right, have a great time. Go carry the message. Because I wouldn't have made it. I couldn't have stayed. I needed a lot. Daily, I need a lot of additional help, right? And that's what step 10 is for me. It says we vigorously, which is on purpose, really. The easiest way to describe vigorously is with intent, on purpose, commence this way of living, which means that that is still my primary purpose, right? The 5th tradition is at play. I am continuing to act on my primary purpose every 24-hour period of time. There are other things in my life today. My life is big. There's a lot of other things in my life. None of them take precedence over my connection to that power that keeps me sober for 24 hours. Everything else is chaos without that. So I vigorously commence this way of living as I'm, the first time we go through the steps and I'm cleaning up my past. I'm out making the amends. This step happens in conjunction with that. I don't complete 9 and get to 10. It says, as I'm in the middle of doing 9, I begin to practice 10. We've entered I love this sentence. And I will tell you that I was really sober, really, really really like a couple of decades sober. And if you had asked me about the 10th step, I would have told you that I knew it backwards and forwards, up and down. I read it every day, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And one day I was in a meeting and the guy just said it a little different. And he said this next sentence and I was like, hold on, wait, what? Because this next sentence is a statement. It says, we have entered the world of the spirit, period. And I thought, what does that mean? Right? Because there are days in my life where it looks like I am living anywhere but the world of the spirit, since I've been sober. And so here's what I believe. I believe that when I make that decision in step 3 and I say, God, here, right, my life is no longer any of my business. And I take the action that's outlined 4 through 9. and I start to clean up the wreckage of my past, that there is grace that is afforded to me, and whether I feel it or not. And there is a relationship in place with a power greater than me, whether I feel it or not, as or believe it or think it's happening. I am living in, existing in the world of the spirit, right? God is present in my life. Whether I can see that or not is irrelevant. If I'm taking the actions that are outlined in the text, God is present, whatever that your concept of that is. God is present and working in my life. And I know that that's true because I'm not drinking. And I'm incapable of keeping myself sober. So something has to be happening here, right? Our next function, my job now, is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But this is not an overnight matter. No greater understatement written in the book. It should continue for our lifetime. It will continue for mine. I am as human as I have ever been. And then it gives us the directions. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, one of the biggest, I just call it AA hearsay, for lack of a better word. That's the kindest way I can put it. There's some AA hearsay about doing a 10th step at night. And I do my 10th step inventory. I hear it all the time in meetings. I do my 10th step inventory at night. This seems very clear to me that this is not a nighttime activity. There is on the next page some direction in step 11 about what we do in the evenings, but this seems very clear. I watch for these things, and when these crop up, I ask God at once to remove them. That's a now thing. I discuss them with someone immediately. That's a now thing. And I make amends quickly if I've harmed anyone. Quickly. That's a now thing. So I've got at once, immediately, quickly. That does not seem like tonight. That does not seem like I'll get back to it. It seems like when I am separated from the power that is necessary, when I am disturbed for any reason, at once, immediately, quickly, I am to address that, right? And I see people do that all the time. I see people go through that all of the time, and they pause and they realize, and I did for a while, although my sponsor was pretty quick to notice what I was missing, but I've always been so effectively sponsored, and I'm so grateful for that. Everything that I share is the direct result of being effectively sponsored. None of this is original to me, obviously, but I would be disturbed. I would recognize where I was being resentful, fearful, selfish, dishonest. I would immediately stop. I would ask God to remove that. I would say I was wrong if I was wrong. I would clean up whatever I had done. I would tell somebody what was going on with me. And then I would go back to whatever I had been doing. And an hour later, I was disturbed, and I would pause, and I would find out where I had been selfish or dishonest or resentful or frightened. And I would tell somebody about it again. I would clean it up again. And I would go back to whatever I was doing. And a couple of hours later, I would be disturbed, right? And it was just this continual thing, because I'm stuck in the loop of me. I can take all of that action, and I am still continually focused on how I'm feeling and what's going on with me and what I'm doing, and cleaning it up with you so that you won't be disturbed with me, right? Whatever that is, I am still the center of that thought process, because I was missing the next sentence. The end of the directions is we resolutely, with commitment, with a firm commitment, we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. So I recognize where I'm disturbed. I ask God to remove the defect that's created the disturbance. I tell somebody about that. I clean up if I've caused any harm. And then I resolutely turn my thoughts to someone I can help. And when I do that, I create a space. This is just how I see it. But when I do that, I create a space for God to come in, right? God intervenes when I resolutely turn my thoughts to you. I am separated from self when I resolutely turn my thoughts to you. And then I am suddenly relieved of the disturbance. But as long as I am focused on me and how disturbed I am, I don't get any relief. I just continually go back to the disturbance, like picking a scab, you know what I mean? I don't let it heal up. And I can't because it's all about me. So that resolutely turn my thoughts to someone I can help is the key for me to this entire step working. If I don't do that, I'm not completing the step. I'm not following the direction. I'm taking an inventory. Maybe I'm cleaning up my mess. Maybe I'm even owning my behavior, but I am not practicing step 10 if I do not resolutely turn my thoughts to someone I can help. It says love and tolerance of others is our code. Blah, blah, blah. It's just like, does it have to be? You know what I mean? Yes, it is. But I will tell you, right? I need step 10 and step 11 in order for love and tolerance of others to be my code, because your defects are so much worse than mine, right? In my mind, whatever you've done is just on a scale that's epically larger than whatever little minor thing I might have done wrong, right? I mean, that's just how my ego presents the story. My ego will tell me the story, and we're not even. You're way worse on the scale of harms caused than I am 1,000% of the time. And so that love and tolerance of others, right? I got to remember that sick is sick. There's so varying degrees here. There's no degree of harm caused. Either I harmed you or I didn't. Period. The end. I don't get to say I harmed you, but no, right? My disturbance, my disconnection from God is the same regardless of the cause. No matter what defect in me has created that disturbance, I am separated from the power that is necessary to keep me sober. There's no degree of that. And then, okay, so now I want to go back to our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. The more that I identify where self manifests in my 2 square feet, the more effective I am in carrying the message to those who are still suffering. I see it more clearly. Until I could clearly identify and speak to my untreated alcoholism, I could not speak to yours. And so the more I practice step 10, the more useful and effective I become, right? The more understanding I am when someone steps on my toes. I think, well, they're prideful. Oh, they were scared, right? Their ego's bruised. And I know this because I've done the inventory on myself. And I know that if I was in their shoes, that's how I would react. So when someone comes at me in an unpleasant manner, because I have repeatedly practiced step 10, I am more effective in carrying the message. And I do have a greater understanding of what alcoholism looks like and how it shows up in our lives. Right? When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought that my untreated alcoholism looked like I was thirsty. And that was it. If I wasn't thinking about drinking, then my alcoholism wasn't at play. I thought it was about the drinking. The longer I'm sober, right, and the more inventory I do, the more I practice this step, all the steps, but this step in particular, the more clear I am that my alcoholism starts way before starts working on me way before I get thirsty. My alcoholism starts working on me when I get judgmental, right? And I start thinking my case is different than your case. Or when I tell a little white lie. I just budget a little. You know what I mean? Somebody asks me a direct question and I can't give a direct answer. That's self. When I feel threatened, that's self. Right? And so that is where my untreated alcoholism will start. And it will start talking to me about like, nobody understands how difficult your life is. Nobody appreciates everything that you do, you know, especially with my family, not an AA, but with my family, right? All those damn kids, right? Nobody ever said thank you. No, why can't they just pick up their shoes? You know why they can't pick up their shoes? Because they don't appreciate you. They don't appreciate how hard you work for them. I don't even know why you're here, right? Just like that. I'm thinking about packing my bags and leaving the house full of kids to fend for themselves. You know what I mean? And it sounds crazy when I say it in this situation, But let me tell you something, when I walk into my house and I have to step over 6 pairs of shoes and there's dirty dishes in the sink and I've been working for 10 hours, packing a bag and going to the beach and leaving those kids to fend for themselves seems like a very reasonable thing for me to do. It's not a sober thing to do by any stretch, but it certainly feels reasonable when my alcoholism has the microphone. If I'm practicing the 10th step, what happens is I pause and I breathe and I think, why am I thinking about killing those kids? Right? And the truth is because they've inconvenienced me. Honest to God, probably 80% today, 80% of my disturbance is because I believe I've been inconvenienced by other people's humanity, right? And I just don't want to. I don't want to deal with other people's humanness. So I'm separated from God. I'm judging. I'm critical. And I'm trying to find an easier, softer way. I have fear about whether I can get everything done. You know what the answer to that question is? I cannot. As soon as I accept that it's not possible for me to handle everything, I stop sweating handling everything. But I learned that through the practice of step 10. I stop and I think, what am I so upset about? And what I'm so upset about is that I'm tired. And I feel like I'm going to have to pick up all those shoes and clean all those dishes and make dinner and fold all the laundry and put the laundry away. And I'm not going to have enough time to sleep. And I'm going to have to get up again tomorrow and do it again. And I forget. I forget that I can tap into an unlimited source. Right? I forget that I found a power in Alcoholics Anonymous that is more than sufficient to meet my needs and solve my problem. Now, if I just continue on into that house in a position of fear and resentment, let me tell you what comes next. Nothing good, right? The kids, I go in mad, yelling at them to pick up their shoes and clean up their dirty dishes. They come back mad at me because they had plans tonight with their friends and I'm ruining their lives. And I'm the worst mom that's ever been in the history of the world. And I'm like, I'm going to make dinner. They say, we don't want dinner. And nobody eats and everybody goes to bed mad. And you know what? There's still 6 pairs of shoes in the floor and a sink full of dirty dishes. Right? That's what it looks like. I know this because I've done this. And at the end of my tantrum and at the end of their tantrum, I turned around and I looked back across my living room at my kitchen and my back door. And I thought, what the hell? There's still dirty dishes in the sink and 6 pairs of shoes by the back door. I'm angry. We're all separated. There is silence in the house, which is not an awful thing when you got 4 teenagers. But there's silence in the house. No one's speaking. And what kind of example have I set for my children? I've come in like a crazy person because I was scared. Now, if I'm practicing step 10 and I learned how to do this, I walk in, I see the shoes on the floor, I see the dirty dishes in the sink, and I think, they're going to want to go out and do something with their friends later. I have leverage, right? And I don't even mention it. I step over the shoes, I ignore the dishes, I go take care of whatever I need to take care of. And as soon as one of them comes and says, hey, can I go out with my friends? I say, are those your dishes in the sink? Yes, ma'am. You want to wash them? No, ma'am. You want to go out with your friends? Yes, ma'am. You want to wash your dishes? Yes, ma'am. And they go wash their dishes. Like, it's all very calm because I brought God into it and it's not a threat and I don't have to handle everything. And I learned all of that practice in this step, right? And some days I would just wash the dishes and some days I would just pick up the shoes. Because I'm the only person that's disturbed by those things in my house. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of sponsor I had. I'd call and say, these stupid kids won't pick up after themselves. He said, that's because it's not bothering them. See, what kind of answer is that? Right? I'm at work. My coworkers aren't doing their job. I'm clear that they're not doing the job that they have been assigned to do. Right? My untreated alcoholism will tell me to do it. Just do it yourself. Right? I'll go do their job. And then I want their pay and their credit, right? My boss is not inclined to pay me for their job. And he's not inclined to, and they're not inclined to give me credit for doing it. And it sets up a whole scenario of resentment and fear and competition and disunity and chaos, right? If I'm practicing step 10, what happens is I think, you know what? She's not doing what she's supposed to be doing. I pause. Why am I disturbed by that? Because I'm minding somebody else's business. If I just tend to my own business, I'm not disturbed at all. Right? I wrote a whole 4-step one time. This is a true story. I wrote a whole 4-step one time. I put in considerable time and effort. Took it to my sponsor and sat down across her kitchen table from her, and I started reading, and she said, "That's none of your business. Mark it off." I was like, "What?" She says, "None of your business. Mark it off." Y'all, we went through my whole 4-step, and there was one single resentment on my 4-step that had anything to do with me. And there was like 28 resentments on there, and none of them were any of my business. It was a very valuable lesson that I have taken into my 10th step. Right. And so I can look, am I disturbed because this is mine? Or am I disturbed because I'm minding somebody else's business? Because I think I know what they should be doing. Right. I get very right about what other people should be doing. So the next paragraph is perhaps, and I don't know why we do this. I don't know what the tradition is. I've never bothered to investigate it. I don't know why we read the 9th step promises in meetings as much as we do and never the 10th. Because when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, these were the promises that gave me the real hope. I didn't actually believe you when you read this, but man, it sounded incredible. And it sounds incredible because it is. We have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality. My sponsor used to say, "I'm Switzerland," right? I'm just neutral. I don't have an opinion. I'm not going to get involved in that. I've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. I have not sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. And then here's the big condition. That is how we react, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Right? And what does that mean? First of all, those 10-step promises to me, the idea when I came to you, what I thought, I think what I believed is that you guys just made an effort to not drink every day. You know what I mean? You guys just struggled through your day not drinking. You know? The idea that alcohol is not an issue, that it's not a thought, it's not a factor. I'm not thirsty. I don't combat it. I don't worry about it. I don't avoid it. I don't seek it. I've been placed in a position of neutrality. If that's not a miracle, then I don't know how you would define one. If that kind of freedom from the depths of hell that I was in when I got here is not God's power, I don't know what is. Right? And that's what you offered me when I came here. And if I practice this step, all the steps, and then this step, right, I end up in this position where I'm just Switzerland. I just don't have an opinion, right? As long as I keep in fit spiritual condition. So what does fit spiritual condition look like? It looks like I've got to practice step 10. I've got to practice step 11. When I practice 10 and 11, 12 happens. I don't have to go find service. I don't have to figure out what principles to practice. I don't have to worry about a spiritual awakening. If I'm practicing 10 and practicing 11, 12 occurs in my life without my permission. I find I'm in the middle of a spiritual awakening all the time. And I act in a principled manner when I didn't know how to do that before. And the service shows up. I don't have to go look for it. I don't have to promote. I don't have to do any of that. I just sit down, right? And it comes to me. And that is fit. That's where I know I'm in fit spiritual condition, right? Because I'm not worried about myself. I'm not obsessed about my finances or my kids or my career or my image or no, right here, right now, doing what is in front of me right here, right now. I'm in a very, very blessed space in my life. Although if you watched me on a daily basis, you'd be like, are you sure you want to call that a blessing? But I am exactly where I am supposed to be, doing exactly what I am supposed to be doing. And there is zero question about that. It is, I live a purposeful life, and I'm crystal clear that every day I am where I am supposed to be. It's the first time that's ever happened for me. It's been going on for a few years now, and it's a pretty sweet spot to exist. There's not a lot of gray area. I don't worry about the future because that's none of my business. I worry about today, and today I have a purpose and I know exactly what it is, and that's pretty amazing. But this next, it says it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. This totally cracks me up. It is easy to let up on a spiritual program of action. But when it says rest on our laurels, what laurels? A laurel is a past accomplishment. The definition of laurel is past accomplishment. What past accomplishment? Every single thing in my life that can be looked upon as an accomplishment, that can be looked upon as a positive, that could be viewed as an accolade. Every single one of those is a direct result of Alcoholics Anonymous. Zero me. I didn't do any of it. Every single thing I have that is of value is because of Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's hilarious, right? That Bill put in here and rest on our laurels, right? I ain't got none. I mean, laurels, right? If there's something somebody wants to say, oh my God, that was amazing. I promise it was because of Alcoholics Anonymous. If I share somewhere and somebody says, oh my gosh, I really loved what you had to say, you're not loving what I had to say. You're loving the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. If I show up, I got a Volunteer of the Year award one time, and they were like, this is so great. You got a Volunteer of the Year award. I was like, well, it's just being a service because you guys taught me how to do that in my community, right? If I get a promotion at work, it's because I show up when I say I'm going to be there, and I give them a full day's work for a full day's wage. And I learned that here, right? If I'm on a committee and things are going well, it's because we're practicing the traditions. Everything that has value in my life is a direct result of Alcoholics Anonymous. There are no laurels, right? We are headed for trouble if I start to take credit for all of those things. If I start to think that any of that is mine, or that I have somehow created any of that, I'm headed for trouble in a big way because I have lost complete sight of what is true. If I begin to take credit for the miracles in my life, I have gone completely off the grid. But the next thing is so true. Alcohol is a subtle foe. Boy, is it. And those of you that have heard me before know I say this all the time, but my alcoholism does not show up and say, you know what we ought to do? We ought to drink 2 fifths of tequila, rob a bank, and see if we could beat the cops to the border. Because if that thought goes through my head, I'm calling you and saying like, hey, Maddie, I think I might have lost my mind. You want to talk to me for a minute, right? Because that's a big thing. My alcoholism shows up, like I said earlier, with, can you believe they didn't say thank you? My alcoholism shows up and says, you know, you've been to a lot of meetings. You probably don't need to go to this one tonight. My alcoholism says, don't worry about answering that phone call. Somebody else will get her. You're tired. You deserve a break. My alcoholism has one job and one job only, and that is to separate me from. And it is subtle, it is creative, it is patient, it is persistent in its pursuit of that objective. And it will use any tool at its disposal. And if I let a fear slide, if I let a resentment slide, if I let a selfish motive go by, if I let a lie sit, my alcoholism will pick it up and play with it until it becomes a whole thing. And now I can't tell you the truth, right? Because it's become a whole thing. I don't want to tell you how I'm doing because I don't want you to know I've been sober 37 years and I still blah, 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 whatever, right? That's all my ego, but it's subtle and it's patient. And I don't know what thing I do in the course of a day that keeps me sober. Like I do the same things every day, and I don't know of those things. What is it that works and what is it that I could let go? I have no idea. So I just keep doing all of it. And this step is a key component of that. The last part of step 7, well, it says, what we really have is a daily reprieve. So in this 24-hour period of time, if I am practicing the principles, practicing the steps, practicing steps 10 and 11, if I am involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, what I get is a reprieve for today. Now, do I think if I get up tomorrow morning and forget to pray or don't make a meeting tomorrow or spend the day full of self-pity that I'm going to be struck drunk? Well, no, I don't think that's going to happen. But can I guarantee it? No, I can't. Right? In my logical mind, I think I'll probably be fine for me to sit on my butt, right? Not answer the phone, let the sponsees fend for themselves, sit around and, right? And maybe that would be fine. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that if you look at my life, it is clear that God does not think I need any free time. It is clear that God is convinced that I am so ill that I must be attending to something at all times. You know what I mean? Because there isn't any free time. I mean, like none. And my alcoholism will say, that's not okay. You deserve. I deserve what? I showed up in Alcoholics Anonymous with 37 cents, a pair of flip-flops, cut-offs, a hoodie, a closed mind, and a bad attitude. My face was caved in. I weighed 198 pounds. I was drinking alcohol around the clock, drunk from the neck down, living on the streets like a maniac, and I had no connection to another human being on the planet. What is it exactly that I deserve? But if I don't practice step 10, my blessings become burdens. If I don't practice step 10, instead of being so grateful for the home that I get to sleep in every night, I'm resentful about having to mow the yard. I'm resentful about having to pay the mortgage. If I don't practice step 10, instead of being glad to be at this job that I've been given where they appreciate me and I love the work that I do, I become resentful about how much money other people might be making. Now, I don't know how much money they're making, but I've come up with a figure in my head, right? That's what happens. My blessings will become, instead of being so privileged to be raising my granddaughter and to be her safe place, my alcoholism will start to focus on how all of my friends who are my age are off on cruises and going to concerts and, right? And why is this so hard? I deserve nothing. I've earned nothing. It is everything in my life is a privilege. It's a gift from you. You guys gave me the life that I have. I didn't do this, right? Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. This is really strong language, and I got to tell you, it's a goal. Right? I mean, they say it like it's a whole thing that's going to happen, but the reality is this is a goal, right? What I strive for is to have a day where I carry the vision of God's will into all of my activities, right? And I carry the vision of his will with me, right, through the entire day, every minute of every day. But the truth is, I drive. And I could be spiritual. I get in the car, somebody cuts me off. I'm not thinking about the vision of God's will for that person. I do have a plan for them, but it is not a vision of God's will, right? I feel certain. So, I mean, or I'm at home and the 7-year-old mouths off and slams the door. The next thing that happens in my mind is not the vision of God's will for her. Now, I've learned to pray, right? So that I don't have to act on the next thing that happens in my mind. But that idea that all the time, it's a goal. I'm a lot closer to it than I was yesterday, right? And yesterday I was closer to it than I was the day before that, and the day before that. Every day is a little bit more. Every day is a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more connected because you just stay at it. Persistence. We persevere. How can I best serve you? Your will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. Again, constantly, a goal. The But it says, I can exercise my willpower along this line. So what does that mean? That means that something's about to happen and I want to figure out what to do, right? This is my direction, God. How can I best serve you in this situation? How can I serve your kids in this situation? What lines up with that? Then I can exercise my will. But I would align my will with his will first. Then I can take that action, right? Instead of me just thinking about me and going and doing what me wants to go do, right? Stop. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. And my little brother pointed out one time, Alcoholics Anonymous is the only place in the world where they put not mine, right? Every church, every whatever, thy will be done. That's what it says. And I mean, and right, you read it, it says, thy will be done. You come to Alcoholics Anonymous, it says, thy will, not mine, be done. Because we need a little extra reminder, right? That I am not thy. I am not the thy that we are praying to, right? I think thy is my will. It is the proper use of the will. And then it goes into step 11, which is equally amazing, and I'm sure will be covered next week. I want to tell the story very quickly before I start. I've been sober I was trying to remember the other day how sober I was, but I was maybe 14 years sober. And my oldest daughter was at that age. It's like 11. And she was just so unpleasant to be around. And she went, she said something or did something, and I lost my temper and went and slammed my door. Then she came into my room and she walked out. She went to her room and I followed her down the hall and yelled at her, came back out, slammed her door, went down the hall, slammed my door back into my room. Just another night in paradise, in my little sober AA house. And so the next day I go to the noon meeting. I always go to the noon meeting. And I go to the noon meeting. My sponsor's there. He said, hey, I want to talk to you. I said, okay. What's up? He said, if you slam one more door, you're fired. I said, I beg your pardon? He said, if you slam one more door, you're fired. I said, what makes you think I'm slamming doors? He said, don't start that with me. Your daughter called me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? She had called my sponsor and turned me in for bad behavior. And so we sat down and had a real honest conversation. And the real honest conversation was, I don't know how to stop slamming doors. I had these behaviors that were impulsive, that were inappropriate, for lack of a better word, right? These reactions that were not the right reaction. And I don't know how to not do that. I don't know how to, behave differently. That's the truth. And Pop said you need to ask for the power to pause when you're agitated or doubtful, which is part of step 11, but he told me to do that. And then he said, the reason that this is happening is because you're not current. And I said, what does that even mean? Yes, I am. You know how you get, like, I don't know if y'all argue with your sponsor or not, but I love to argue with my sponsor. And I don't anymore, but I did for sure back then. And I had the right sponsor for it. He was up to the task. And so I said, that's not true. I am current. He said, no, you're not. And I said, how do you know? He said, because of how you're living. He said, your life is not an example of the principles that are outlined in that text. He said, you are still acting like a drunk, crazy person in certain areas of your life, and it's because you're not staying current. I was like, I don't know what you mean. And we went and we got here, and he read me these 2 pages. And he said, you are letting this accumulate as you go through the day. And by the time you get home to your family, you have all of these. And he was real visual, and that worked for me. But he would always talk about this channel straight up in the air between me and God, right? And he said, every little thing that you fail to address as you go through the day is a block in the channel between you and God. And by the time you get home, it's nothing but bricks, right? And that channel is completely blocked off. And what your kids get is a mess of self, right? your family who deserves your best ends up getting nothing but self. Instead of the prayed up person that makes it to work, because that's what had happened. I take the kids to school and I drive to work, and on the drive to work, I breathe and pray. I go to work. I'm like, awesome. But every little thing, somebody, interrupt me in a meeting, somebody would, not turn in some paperwork I needed to get my job done, or somebody would not respond to a phone call that I made. And I would just start getting a little bit more irritated, one little thing at a time. And that channel would get disconnected. That channel would get blocked off. And by the time I got to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm sitting in traffic and I'm waiting to get back. And now I'm mad at everybody that's driving, and I'm tired and I'm hot. And I know those kids are going to destroy that house. Like I got a whole thing going in my head. And I'm for sure not current. And so when I practice this 10-step on a consistent basis all day long, I stay current and connected. I can be where my feet are. Right? For this hour that I'm on this meeting, I'm only on this meeting. I'm not also worried about work, or worried about my granddaughter, or worried about my kids, or worried about my money, or thinking about a sponsee. I am here and present and accounted for with you. And be the capacity to do that, because I can do that, right? Then I can ask God, give me the words you need for me to say. Let me be the channel for whatever it is that you need for me to say, for whoever needs to hear it, because that's way above my pay grade. I pray and I'm available for that. And it's a direct result of practicing that 10-step. If I took all the things that happened at work this morning and brought them to this meeting, you're going to get a jumbled, garbled mess of self, right? But as all the things happen at work, in between each thing that's happening, and the people that I work with will tell you periodically, I just get up and walk out. Right? I just go stand outside for a minute, breathe, not let the sun be on me for a minute, say, God, everybody at my office is an idiot. Please help me not to tell them so, right? Why is it bothering me today? Whatever it is. One of my favorite prayers is, and I'll close with this, but one of my most favorite prayers is, God, please put your arm around my shoulder and your hand over my mouth. And I use that all day long at work, right? But I'm talking to God all day long at work, and I'm staying connected to that power. And the end result of that is that I'm present and accounted for in a life that is beyond anything I could ever have imagined. It really is. So I appreciate the invitation to come share with you guys. I have talked way too long. Thank you so much for letting me share some. Thanks for being here.